I've been sent a video by a channel called Edgier Than Thou. Good name, I gotta admit. I think we watched one video from this channel in the past, and I think I remember it being pretty good, but I could be making that up. That could be some false memory in my mind. But the video's called That Stupid Anti-Trans Graph is Even Worse Than I Thought. I believe this is in reference to the, likelihood of a trans person committing any form of violent crime. We've gone over this in the past, but if you dig into the data, of which we have on stream so many times that at this point I just encourage you guys to fact check me if you think I'm wrong, and, tell me I'm wrong and call me on my bullshit if I am. I'm not, so good luck. But that said, though, trans people are not in any way likely to commit violent crimes, particularly trans women, the #1 most focused on demographic for, anti-trans fear-mongering. They're, in fact, the least likely to commit violent crime of any kind. In fact, a cis woman is more likely to commit a violent crime against a trans woman than a trans woman to commit a violent crime against a cis woman. Even when you count per capita that there are a lot less trans women than cis women, yes, I am, I know the data. Per capita, accounting for all the disparities and everything, there's just not very many cases of trans women assaulting cis women. It's not common. It doesn't really happen. And so the fear-mongering of this idea, to get people scared and angry and hateful, has been a persistent problem. It's not based in a single ounce of truth, and yet it won't die. This lie won't die. Bars. And why is that? Why won't it just go away? Why haven't people woken up to the truth that's right there in front of them, a Google search away at their very fingertips? It's a convenient lie. It's a comfortable lie, and it's a common sense lie. How often do you hear the right talk about common sense like it's pure gold? They talk about it, and it's become very quickly, it's turned into a buzzword that means honestly nothing, but it really does mean something when you think about it. Common sense. It's your first instinct. It's following your gut. It's assuming that the knowledge you have to pull from already can be used to guide you to a relatively accurate conclusion on any new issue you come across. And the older you get, in most cases, people seem to get more confident that their common sense can get them through most issues. And the more confident you get that your common sense is enough, the less likely you are to actively keep up with world events, with the news, to fact-check common phrases and talking points you're hearing bouncing around, rather than just absorbing them and repeating them, assuming they're true because they've been vetted by the crowd repeating them and not figuring out on their own that it's nonsense. And it's truly this anti-intellectual convenient lie politics that we're in right now, where they're just making up a narrative and choosing to believe it because otherwise they have to admit that trans people aren't that scary. Anyway, I'm curious to see if this video is good at breaking down all these thoughts I have, and being a live format content creator, I'm not the best at explaining my feelings and my thoughts all that well in real time and getting every thought across, every idea I wanted to get across, every argument I wanted to make, because I don't have a script. I've got to do it all in my head, improv. This video will hopefully lay out a lot of these ideas and thoughts that I have on this issue in a much more organized way, because it does seem to be a prepared video as opposed to my live stream segments. So let's give it a watch, shall we? The link to the original video will be down below in the description when this goes out on YouTube, by the way. Let's hop into it. Oh! And consider leaving a like and a comment in this video if you haven't already. Seriously, the algorithm is cruel and brutal. It really means a lot. In fact, comment down below if you made it this far. Who up Xandering their hall? Let's just stick to tradition with this one. Anyway, let's hop right to it.
We're doing a sequel.
Oh my god, it's Cormit.
Popular demand.
Hey there, folks. I am going to admit to you that I have a little bit of egg on my face right now. So last week I posted a video debunking the outright ridiculous Republican lie that trans people make up a disproportionate rate of violent shooters in the United States. Now, to clarify, that portion...
Well, to be clear, trans people don't make up a disproportionate amount of any violent crime in the United States. If your, stereotype of a trans person is that, the bark is louder than their bite, then that would be a statistically sound claim.
portion of the video is 100% correct. In fact, the majority of my video is 100% correct. But I made the claim that nobody could find a source for these graphs which were used to justify that ridiculous Republican lie.
You know what this reminds me of? I'm so unk, bro. Is this like cringe and unk to even call back to? I remember back in 2016 and 2017, JonTron got into shit because he started tweeting some Nazi stuff. Destiny debated him. It was iconic. We all know this story. I'm not going to repeat it. But the part of it that I will repeat is that JonTron and Destiny's entire debate spurned from him posting a graph, a very official-looking piece of data claiming that rich black people commit more crime than poor white people. This graph was being used to try and debunk the claim that black people commit more crime because of socioeconomic factors such as poverty. And their claim is like, no, it's not poverty. Look at this data. It has to be wink, wink, nudge, nudge, tap on side of nose, something else. Of course, hinting at the idea that, you know, because he's a white nationalist and a Nazi, he believes that violence is inherent to black people, a very common white supremacist conspiracy and belief. I don't hear it as much these days, but I'm sure once black people are the main target of their ire again, they'll be repeating it a lot. And so now, you know, trans people being their main focus, now they're producing the same fake data, which, mind you, if you were wondering, it's not true. Rich black people do not commit more crime than poor white people. In fact, the data points that they pulled from claim to come from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, a bureau that never gathered data on crime based on race. They never collected that data. They couldn't have possibly pulled that data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Later on, the creator of that graph ended up admitting he pulled that data from a different institution, combined it with the data on poverty for white and black people, and assumed that if he added all that together, it would equal an accurate outcome, which of course is not how any data scientist would do things. But they made a real official-looking graph, just like these graphs look real official, don't they? And people post it all over Twitter, and they say, oh my god, look, the facts, the logic, it's unassailable. In reality, there's a reason why at nowhere in these graphs or in these images do you see a citation line. You'll notice this a lot when people post a graph on Twitter that's a real graph representing real data. There's usually like a little line of tiny text that's like just a list of important citations and stuff for how the data was collected, who collected it, just a bunch of science bullshit. But it's important to include if you're trying to pass it off as real, like, what's the word for it? Synthesized data by real data scientists.
I specifically pointed out that the Daily Wire discussed this graph and even left a spot for them to post the source and didn't post the source as evidence that they probably could not find any source. Now, as it turns out, that was a mistake. They didn't not post the source because they couldn't find it. They didn't post it because it is absolutely humiliating. I'm embarrassed that I couldn't find this information before. I'm assuming there must be some link or some source or something that I missed, so I'm issuing a correction now. But a commenter pointed this out to me, and I'm very much grateful to them. If you need any context behind the graphs, still just go back and watch that original video. Like I said, the majority of it is correct, but I'm assuming that you have the context now, so allow me to present to you the creator of the stupid anti-trans graphs. Frank McCormick is an ex-teacher who exposed woke schools, and he decided
it's always some dumbass with a little bit of experience in Photoshop who can make a real official-looking, graph, and they say, well, okay, I didn't pull this data from anywhere official. I had to pull data from a few different places, and, I did a little math, and I combined some things, and I crunched some numbers, and, this is what I got, and, it's accurate enough. That's basically how these people operate when you call them on their bullshit. They're always producing these, fake documents. I love this image of the myth of Nero playing the fiddle as Rome burned, by the way. These people are so larpy and cringe. I bet he thinks this is such a deep cut reference, and all I need to see is Rome burning and the fiddle, and I know exactly what the fuck it is. It's you're not clever for having that reference. Everyone knows about the story of Nero playing the fiddle as Rome burned. These people think they're so fucking unique and clever, bro. They're not smart, but they think they're smart. They think they're so, well read and like they think they're historical gurus because they've got like Roman statue PFPs and shit.
That it would be worthwhile to have
Yeah, so that's a loot. Yeah, it's not even a proper fiddle. Exactly.
real hard data showing that trans people suck and are violent and are scary and spooky and all of the other adjectives that you might want to add to them. Now, initially when I saw this tweet thread, I was a little bit worried because there's a bunch of sources down there and it was going to take me a ton of work to parse through all of the information that he parsed through to make those graphs, and it was going to be annoying, and I felt, an obligation to make a follow-up, and it was going to be a bunch of work and really, really annoying. It just turns out I actually don't have to do that. The reason I say this is because Mr. McCormick tells us exactly how he got these numbers. So just as a refresher, according to McCormick's graph, 0.769 per million trans women / and this isn't my favorite term by any stretch, AMAB, non-binary people commit mass shootings with 4+ fatalities. Now I'm going to ask you, based off of this graph, based off of the numbers that we're presented with, how many mass shooters is he basing that number off of? Now,
8? Because I'm pretty sure the number, it's an even number, and it's either 6 or 8 is the amount of trans mass shooters there have been, period.
You must assume it has to be, it has to be a large number, right, in order to get this massive of a population statistic. So I'll narrow it down a little bit.
How small of a sample size did they take to get this number? Is it 10?
Less than 10. Okay.
It's about right. That's about right.
But I'll narrow it down.
I swear to God, I've not pre-watched this video, by the way. Like, the data just looks that off. There's, like, because, like, the reality is, they would have had to fudge the data to change the results by 10 times over, to literally swap the results around completely. Trans women, AMAB trans women, are the least likely to commit violent crime out of all the demographics that were tracked on that chart. So that chart showing them as being the most likely to commit a violent crime, it's like, how small of a sample size? Because like it's in the single digits, the amount of trans mass shooters. So like, how small of a sample size would you have to take? It'd have to be 10 or less, right? Because it said about 70%, it would have to be like 9.5 or 10, and you get roughly the like 70% with like 6 to 8 mass shootings. You get roughly the 70% that is represented in that graph. Like, it has to be an extremely small sample size that, of course, includes all 8 or 6, I forget exactly how many, trans mass shooters there have been.
Down a little bit further than that, it's less than 5. And I'm going to be honest with you. Looking at these numbers, looking at the fact that he specifically says trans / non-binary, you would assume it has to at least be 2, right? In order for there to be a trans woman and a non-binary person. And if you assume that, you're a stupid idiot who doesn't understand conservative politics. That number is based off of one person. One singular person. That is how he got that per million statistic. One single human being. But it gets worse. Because the one singular non-binary person, by the way, not a trans woman, that he based that off of is the fucking fake trans shooter from Club Q. The one person that he is...
That's crazy. For those that don't know, the Club Q shooter, well, they did claim this one was a right-winger, and then it turned out, or was a left-winger, and then it turned out was very much not a left-winger. Oh yeah, here's the picture of the Club Q shooter after the beating he received. Where's the father? And then we got a picture of the father. Now, here's the Club Q shooter after having his shit absolutely rocked, and oh my god, I like call me racist, but I would love to take some calipers to this guy's skull, I'm telling you. And then, of course, there's his dad. When he does not have a lot of teeth, it turns out. He's missing a lot of his teeth. A lot of them. He seems to like the old metharooney. He's a little bit of a he breaks bad quite often, it would seem. So yeah, like, and of course he had a long history of Nazi posting on 4chan, as it turns out. So yeah, like, There have been actual trans shooters, multiple now, by the way, that he could have pulled that data from. It's actually crazy. I feel like as if I was a dishonest conservative, I could have made that fake chart better. I would have just counted the 6 or 8 actual trans shooters there have been, and then take such a low sample size that they seem overrepresented in the data. It's that easy, and, you know, at least the data itself is sound. You would just, the only bullshit you could get called on is taking an unreasonably small sample size, and at that point, you know, if you're following as conservatives, you can easily fool them into thinking that's a nonsense complaint. As the right is wont to do when the left calls them out on their bullshit. They just say, that's an unimportant thing they're calling me out on. It doesn't make any difference. And they say, yeah, of course. We don't have to change our views. And all is well in their world.
Getting this population statistic from is the guy who shot up an LGBT nightclub and then cynically pretended to be non-binary afterwards. If you were wondering why Matt Walsh didn't share his source for this claim, or why Jesse Waters never gave his source for this claim, it's because it's fucking insane. It's coming from a sample size of 32 total shootings, of which 2 of them were committed by trans people. Sorry, 1 of them, because as we've established, 1 of them is fake. So he is basing all of this information off of 1 trans guy and 0 trans women and 0 non-binary people. This is what passes for conservative journalism. Just to remind you, my original video covered some of the actual statistics on this subject coming from the Secret Service, from the Gun Violence Archive, from, I believe, the Violence Project. This is unscripted if you couldn't tell. And the lowest sample size that I used was a little under 200. So conservatives are basing their stupid worldview off of 1 single Twitter user who...
Now, let's be very clear here. They are not basing their worldview on that data chart, okay? This is all post hoc. These people have decided they're right, and now it's all about manufacturing evidence to make them feel like the conclusion they arrived to has always been right. And, you know, it makes them feel like, well, you know, I might have just not logic myself into this position, but the logic and facts seem to suggest I lucked myself into the right position. And that's probably how a lot of the people that follow these pundits feel when they see data like that.
Who used a sample size of 32, ignored tons of other instances of mass violence, who used a cisgender person in place of a non-binary person in order to get his numbers. And I'm expected to take this some semblance of seriously. Like, I legitimately felt kind of awkward and bad using 178, I think it was, sample size survey in my original video, because that's just such a small number. It's so hard to glean anything from that. And here, it turns out, I didn't have to worry. But rest assured, Frank has responded to criticism on this front, and I think what he has to say is very interesting. So let me give you one example. This is what he says. You can take issue that the data set is small, 32 mass shootings and 2 trans shooters.
There it is. I literally knew exactly, like, when you call out, like it's, they're pandering to such a stupid audience that when you call them out on something as blatantly dishonest as, your sample size is so small, it skews the data. You specifically targeted a sample size small enough to skew the data in your favor by several margins. Like, the larger of a sample size you take, the more accurate data gets. That's literally how data works. And you're choosing to have the smallest sample size you can reasonably have in order to make it as inaccurate as possible. The problem with that is, most of his followers, most conservatives, don't understand how data even works. They don't even recognize that, like, a larger sample size is good. I'm sure they think the smaller sample size you can take and still get a result, the better. That's probably how a lot of conservatives think. They don't understand that the larger the sample size, no matter what, the better. And so that alone is an advantage they have. And so when you call them out on how small the sample size is, they can just say, that's a nonsense criticism. It makes no difference. You're just nitpicking. And, you know, these people are retarded and brain dead, and so they buy it.
There's really one. But this is the game many have been playing when taking 82 white male mass shooters since 1982 and using that to lecture us about how dangerous white men are. You can't have it both ways. So just to be clear, this guy's best defense of his shitty work is admitting that it was stupid and ridiculous, and then just saying, well, other people did something stupid and ridiculous, so I can lie as much as I want. In case you're wondering, the statistics on white male mass shooters, some of which we covered in the original video, are actually concerning and go a little bit deeper than just saying, oh, there were 82 since 1982. So yeah, this guy is a joke. Anyone spreading this graph is a joke and deserves to be made fun of endlessly.
I agree.
I am so sorry that I didn't catch this before. I mean, this would have been like really good content for that video, because holy shit, these people are stupid. They're liars. They think that you're stupid. And you know, something else insulting that I can't come up with on the fly. Thanks for watching this little update. And if this is what passes for journalism in conservative spaces, I think, and this is something that, you know, they can make a living off of, that they can go viral over. I think you should consider subscribing to me for having done significantly more work than any of these people have ever done in their lives. And I, to be clear, didn't have to do much work here. But yeah, press the subscribing buttons and the liking buttons.
That was a damn good video, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hit the subscribing button. I'm gonna hit the liking button. And I'm even gonna go as far as to do the craziest thing. I'm gonna leave a comment. Good video. Let's hope YouTube doesn't think that's a bot comment. There we go. Sub, comment, and like. Exactly what I would like you guys to do to that video, and mine if you would be so generous, as the YouTube algorithm considers engagement the #1 decider of whether or not it pushes anything out to more people, so I appreciate it immensely. The right wing has a massive advantage when it comes to engagement with their videos, and that's kind of why they dominate the algorithm, so drop a like and drop a comment, it helps a ton. Subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already, it really does help a lot. Follow my social medias linked down below if you want to see more from me on other platforms, and if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub to someone else on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merchandise through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, thank you so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.